Hello and welcome to your yoga class. My name is Jenny. This is a Restore class, and this, in my opinion, is the yummiest of the yogas. Restore gives us an opportunity to really just kind of slow down, tune in, kind of see what's going on, check in with the body, check in with the energy levels, check in with the emotions, all that good stuff. So we're gonna be getting into a few deeper poses where some support might be nice, and we will be utilizing some props today. So take some time to gather a few things. I usually always have a block or two with me. I don't always use them in every class, but they are a good way to bring in a little lift, maybe bring the ground closer. It's nice to sit on at times, to support yourself. So like I said, I don't have anything planned for class tonight that will need one, but if you like to practice with a block, feel free to grab one. You will probably want to grab a blanket. We're going to be doing some work on the knees, and it's just nice to give a little extra cushion. Even if you're like, girl, my knees are fine, just go ahead and add that little cushion, because your knees will thank you later. And we will also be using a yoga strap or just anything that, is something you can grab onto. We'll be doing a lot of leg kind of poses where we'll be using the strap. Kind of like this. So something that's just going to give you a little extra extension so that you don't have to kind of force anything or crank through the neck. But if you don't have access to anything like this, you can use a necktie, a dish towel, anything like that. But I'll still give you ways that you can do those stretches without the strap. So no fear. And then if you like, got my trusty bolster. This is one of my favorite props, not just in Restore, but for any kind of class. And that can be substituted with cushions, couch cushions, a stack of pillows, rolled up blankets, anything like that. So for those at home, take some time to gather your props, and then we'll meet in a comfortable seated position. So take your time. If you like to sit up on anything, it helps me to sit to kind of raise the booty a little bit because I've got tighter low back. So it helps me to tilt the pelvis forward and sit just a little bit taller. So it's kind of nice if you notice that when you sit, if you have to kind of round out or lean back, that's when a little lift in the booty can be a little nice. So take your time, settle in. You can close the eyes if that feels good. And in your seated position, you can cross the legs. If that doesn't work, stretch out through the legs. You can plant the feet on the ground, drawing the knees in towards the chest. You could even sit on a chair if that feels best. And then just start to settle in. Feeling down into the connection to your sits bones, using that to lengthen up through the crown of the head. So we're sitting with integrity, but then softening in the shoulders, softening in the face. Just start to draw your awareness inward. Starting to notice the breath. Starting to check in with the body. And all yoga practices, no matter what style, always bring us back to this idea of mindfulness. And yoga plays with mindfulness and your relationship to mindfulness in a lot of different ways. We play with it through our physical practice, the sensations in the body, finding our edge and maybe pushing it a little, but not too far. And when the mind, starts to wander, when things start to feel chaotic, you can come back to your physical sensation. That's one of the easiest things for us to connect to, because that's visceral. So start to check in with the body, start to notice any aches or pains, any stiffness or soreness. Stay aware of any injuries that you're holding in the body. Now the physical connection is one of the easiest ways to practice mindfulness. Another way is mentally, which can be more of a challenge. So one way that you can do that is just to simply observe the thoughts. So as you're sitting here, checking in with the breath, connecting to the body. Just simply observe the emotions, the thoughts, whatever is swirling around for you. But try not to attach to those things. Just simply observe, gather that information. These two ways that we can practice mindfulness through our physical connection or through our mindful observation. We practice these on the mat so that when we step off the mat, maybe we can integrate them into our lives. We can start to notice when we are not treating our bodies with respect, with either, the food or other things that we put into it or things that we don't do with it. And the mindfulness of the thoughts can help us when we get into high intensity situations, when we get overly emotional, or, I hate to use the term overly emotional, because as a sensitive one, I don't believe in that word. When just tensions are high and we sometimes react just very knee-jerk reactions. And this idea of mindfulness can help us to take a step back, to not just react immediately, but to take a moment to pause and think, is this coming from my truth? Or is this coming from a defense mechanism or a coping mechanism? Is this coming from past trauma? Is this coming from undealt with emotions? So we're able to navigate our life just a little bit more mindfully. So that's really what we're practicing here. It's all coming back to mindfulness. So continue to check into the body, and as you connect with the breath, there are multiple ways to connect to the breath. You can simply just observe it, feeling its natural flow, feeling the rise and fall of the belly, and in bringing awareness to the breath, there might be a natural tendency to start to deepen it and move towards that. That's getting us back to our more natural state of breathing, more deep belly breaths. And if you want to take that connection even further, then bring a little more intention to your breathing. Working to breathe in and out of the nose. And working to press the belly out on the inhale, which creates more space for those lungs to expand. And on the exhale, drawing the belly in, helping to press all that air out. So if you're working with deep belly breaths tonight, try to use the full capacity of your breath, or of the lungs with each breath. And if you'd like to take the connection to the breath just a step further, you could add an ujjayi breathing, which is done by activating the muscles in the back of the throat, the same muscles that fog up a window or a mirror, kind of that sound. But while you're still taking the breath in and out of the nose, it just gives the breath this audible quality. Something for the mind to tune into, another way for us to practice mindfulness, for us to come back to our present moment. It's a way to connect to the body viscerally. It helps to calm the mind. So lots of different ways that you can connect to your breath tonight. Just find what works for you, and don't feel like you have to pick one and stick with it through the class. If nothing else, observe the breath. Let's take a few more rounds of breath here, checking in before we start to add some movement into our breathing. Awesome work. And as you feel ready, we're going to be working a lot with the hips, the legs, the low back. So let's just start to bring a little movement into the torso. Just releasing the hands down. They can rest on the thighs or just come down alongside the body. And we're just going to take some torso circles. So just kind of circling the torso around like we're scooping peanut butter out of a jar. And these circles could be big or small, but we want to keep the chest raised. So we're not dipping down, but we're really just isolating through the mid part. Circling, getting a little movement through the hips, through the low back, and when it feels right, just reverse the direction of those circles. Fantastic work. And then as you feel ready, we're gonna start to set up a tabletop, so coming forward into hands and knees. This is where you're gonna want your blanket. So you'll want to kind of lay it out so that you can kneel on it, so you have a little extra cushion. And you'll want to have your strap handy. And if you don't have a blanket, double up on the mat. You can kneel on pillows, anything just to give the knees a little support. Like I said, they'll thank you later. And we're gonna come into tabletop, spreading out through the hands. Find a good position that works. Maybe it's hands directly underneath the shoulders. If that feels a little too narrow, feel free to take them out wider. You could walk the hands forward if that feels better on the wrists. You could rotate the fingers in whatever direction feels good. So just stay mindful of the wrists, the shoulders, kind of what feels good there. And then just start to move. Whatever way the body moves you. Maybe it's forward and back. Maybe it's some movement through the spine, some cat-cow, spinal flexion. Maybe it's bringing in more circles through the torso. But just getting more movement in the body. You could dip the hips back towards a child's pose. They could come forward towards a gentle upward dog. And just some freestyle movements here. Staying connected to the breath. And let the breath be the guide. Let the breath move you. And when you feel ready, we'll start to just meet up in a tabletop. So you can find that solid connection to the hands. The toes are pointed down, and we're pressing into the tops of the feet. And then bring some awareness to the spine. Lengthen out through the crown of the head. Lengthen out through the tailbone. Gently tuck the belly in so there's some support there. So really active in our tabletop here. And then we're just gonna start without shifting too much in the hips. We're gonna bring the weight into the left knee so we can lift the right knee up and just start to circle around. Again, these could be as big or as small as you'd like. Working a little bit through the hips, through the glutes, and reverse direction of those circles. And then just take a few freestyle moves, maybe kicking the leg back. You can cross it over. Just whatever movements in that leg feels good. And then when you feel ready, we're gonna step the foot in between the hands. So take your time, and if you need to, use the hand to physically place the foot there, feel free. And then this is where we want to make sure that our cushion, our little padding, is in the right place. So with the left kneecap down, it might also feel good to kind of shift forward so that you're putting weight directly above the kneecap, not on the kneecap, so that little fleshy part above the kneecap. This is where blocks or a cushion could come in handy to bring the ground closer, and just start to kind of feel into this. Maybe a little gentle forward, kind of not necessarily pushing, but a little forward lengthening through the hips, getting a little more into that left hip flexor. Find your breath here. Nice work. Then just as a counter stretch, we'll send it back to a half split. So we'll start to straighten through that front leg as we walk the hands back. Again, blocks are nice here to bring the ground a little closer. We're gonna flex those right toes up. And then you can kind of play with, if you want to, just kind of keep the body straight up and down and just maybe kind of play with the sensation there. Or if you want to bring in a little forward folding here, but stay in tune with how this is feeling in the back of the leg, how it's feeling in the low back. Stay connected to the breath. And we don't want to create any pain in the body. Pain is a sign that you've gone too far. The phrase no pain, no gain does not apply to yoga. So we want to kind of find that sweet spot where it's working, it's stretching, it feels like it's doing some good. But as soon as it starts to feel like any pinching, burning, tearing sensations, anything that may be causing any pain or injury, then reevaluate, back off, check the ego, and just respect the body. Okay, as you feel ready, we're going to come forward again. So we're going to rebend in that knee, planting that front foot down. And we're going to bring this into a quad stretch. So for some extra balance, again, you can have blocks or something here to kind of bring the ground closer. Or maybe you bring the hands to the knee and raise up. That might increase that stretch in the hip flexor a little bit more. And to bring this into a quad stretch, we're going to start to kick that left heel in towards the glute. Now notice, you might start to get a Charlie horse there. That's usually my body's first kind of reaction. So as we draw the heel in, if you do get that Charlie horse, don't be afraid to kind of release and shake it out a little bit and then try to come back into it. And then we're kicking the heel towards the glute. Maybe it's just energetically lifting towards the booty, or perhaps that left hand starts to reach back for the foot. And if it finds it, maybe it starts to draw that foot a little bit closer. Now stay in tune with the intensity in the quad. This is where you could also bring in a strap, but it will take a little bit of balance to use the strap. But if you'd like, you could wrap the strap around the foot. You could bring both ends of the strap to the left side, or you could bring both sides of the straps to either side to help draw that heel in. And we're not using the strap to force anything. It's just if you want a little extra sensation. But for me, I don't need it. I'm feeling it just right here as is. Other ways that you could explore a little deeper sensation is maybe to start to shift that left hip forward. The right hand can come down towards the ground. You could fold forward a little deeper. It's not where my body is, so I'm not going there. But if that feels good in your body, definitely check it out. I'm starting to feel a little pressure on my knee. So I'm gonna release and just bring a little extra cushion, maybe fold my mat or my blanket one more time. Ooh, yeah, that's it. Awesome work. Now we'll take about 10 more rounds of breath here, but feel free to, if you're good on the quad stretch, you can release it and come back into that hip flexor stretch. If you want to get more into that hamstring stretch. So for about the last minute, if you want to explore, feel free, or if you want to just breathe deep into any of those poses. So a little bit of options for you to explore. Stay connected to the breath. Feel the sensations in the body. Notice the thoughts in the mind. Halfway through, about 5 more rounds of breath. And as you start to wrap it up, as it feels right, we'll just meet back up in our tabletop. So take your time to get there. Drawing that right foot back, coming back through hands and knees, and then working through that freestyle movement. So whatever would feel good here, maybe some circles through the hips, shifting the hips side to side. You could kind of wag the tail, taking the gaze over each shoulder, getting a little side stretch. Or any other way that the body moves you. Connect to the breath. You're welcome to even come down into a child's pose, which is also a quad stretch. And then as as you feel ready, we'll meet back up in our tabletop. We want to find that solid connection to the hands as we press the ground away, pressing into the feet, lengthening through the spine, out through the crown of the head, out through the tailbone. Belly draws in, so we have support there. And then without, really shifting in those hips, we just want to bring the weight into that right knee so we can raise the left knee up and just start to circle. Again, as big or as small as you'd like. If that right hip is really jutting out, try to bring it back in line with the knee or anywhere around there. As it feels good, reverse direction of those circles. And for the last 3 to 5 rounds of breath, just any freestyle movements with that leg that would feel good. And then as you feel ready, we'll step that left foot in between the hands, coming into our low lunge. We really want to plant solid into that front foot and then let the knee shift forward over the ankle. We don't want it to come past the ankle, but it's fine to have it in line or slightly behind. And again, we're paying attention to that right kneecap, maybe shifting forward slightly just so that we come to that little squishy part above the knee, not putting direct pressure on the kneecap. And this is a great place to bring in blocks or a cushion to bring the ground closer. And just feel into this opening in the hips, the stretch in the right hip flexor. You can find stillness in the pose, taking some deep breaths, or maybe a little gentle movement forward and back. Stay connected to the breath. A few more rounds of breath here. Awesome work. And as you feel ready, we'll just take that counter stretch into the half splits. So starting to straighten through that front leg, hips shift back, hands walk back. You could bring blocks with you. Our left toes are pointing up towards the sky so we can get that activation through the leg. Or you can play with pointing and flexing through the toes and noticing how that kind of changes up the sensation as we point. It comes into more top of the foot, up into the shin kind of area. As we flex, it takes it more into the back. And again, your choice if you want to kind of play with a more upright position in the upper body, or if you want to bring in more sensation by folding forward. Again, stay in tune. Don't feel like you have to do the same thing on this side as you did on the other side. Our bodies are different. We want to get to know those differences and respect those differences in the body. Connect to the breath. Stay in tune with the body. And observe those thoughts. Work. As you start to feel ready, we'll come forward again into our low lunge, so planting that left foot. I'm going to go ahead and double up on my mat, or double up on the blanket, just to give that right kneecap a little extra cushion. And we'll start to take this into a quad stretch. So it's easier to kick the heel into the glute typically if you're a little more upright. So maybe coming up onto with hands on the knees, or using blocks, or you can, at home you can even use, a couch or something, a chair. And then start to kick that right heel in towards the glutes. And notice if it starts to cramp up in the hamstring, feel free to adjust for that. Then again, with that heel kicking towards the glute, it might just be energetically coming towards the glute. The hand could reach back, maybe just an energetic reach, or maybe you find the foot to draw that heel a little closer to the glute. Nothing forceful, stay in tune with the knee. Or again, this is another place, or this is a place that you could bring in the strap. Wrapping it around the foot, bringing both ends of the strap over to the right side, or both straps coming alongside the body. So the strap is definitely not necessary here. My goal is to give you enough options to where you can explore what feels right in your body within safe parameters, but with the freedom of your own autonomy. Because it's impossible for me to know how this feels in your body. I know how it feels in mine. So you get to be the real teacher. I'm simply a guide. You are the ultimate teacher. Awesome work. We've got about another minute here. So again, you're welcome to stay here in the quad stretch. You could release and come back into the hip and hip flexor stretch, or you could take it back into our half splits. You could bring in some movement for the last minute, or you could find some stillness in whatever pose feels right for you. It's a little yogi's choice for about 6 or so more breaths. Starting to wrap it up in the next 3 breaths. Awesome work. And when you feel ready, we'll come back into our tabletop. So drawing that left foot back, coming back to hands and knees, and once again, just moving however feels right for you. Whatever the body's craving. And as you feel ready, we will meet up on our back. So however you'd like to transition to that. And you want to have the strap with you if you're working with one. So take your time, coming down onto the back. And before we start in with any stretches here, let's just reach overhead with the hands, stretch out through the legs. Just let's take a nice big good morning stretch. Nice little reset. Rolling out through the wrists and ankles, wiggling through the fingers, spreading out through the toes. You can allow a sigh out of the mouth if that would feel good here. Awesome work. And when you feel ready, we'll just start to draw the right knee in towards the chest. Grabbing onto that knee with both hands. If that's a little too intense in the hips, you're welcome to bend the left knee and plant the foot on the ground. It'll give you a little more stability, a little more structure, and won't be as intense on the hips. And then with the hands on the right knee, we'll just start to circle the knee around. So we're kind of working the top of the femur bone or the top, the thigh bone into the hip flexor, the hip socket. So I personally like this because I feel like it gives me a hip flexor massage at some points. Okay, now this is where you're going to want to locate your strap or whatever it is that you're working with. You want to find about the center of it and wrap it around the ball of the foot. And then we're going to extend that right leg up towards the sky. Now, if you don't have a strap, don't have a tie or a dishcloth or anything like that, you are welcome to just interlace the hands behind the leg. It could be at the thigh, it could be up at the calf, it could even reach up for the foot. But what we want is the back to be able to stay nice and grounded. We don't want to have to lift up through the head and strain through the neck. So with the strap, it's over the ball of the foot, and we want to flex the toes back, and you can use the placement of the strap to kind of draw those toes back and lift up through the heel. That'll probably induce a little bit of shaking in the leg. Totally fine. Embrace the shake. And you can kind of play with, kind of drawing the toes up towards the head, saying hello to your hamstring. And if being in stillness here, or for me, it'd be sitting here with a shaking leg. Or if you want to bring in a little movement, you can maybe take some small little circles through the heel, maybe about the size of a softball. So nothing too big or extravagant, but if a little bit of circling would feel good here, feel free. And if you're taking that option, reverse the circles when it feels right for you. And notice the grip in the hands. Is it stressed? Are you putting all your tension there? Is it causing tension in the neck and in the shoulders? We don't want to create any more stress in the body. So loosen up the grip, which could be taken literally or figuratively. Awesome work. As you start to feel ready with the strap, we're going to start to open up the right leg over towards the right. Again, stay in tune with what's happening in the left hip. That left leg can be extended along the ground. It can be bent with the knee bent, foot planted on the ground. And then as you open up that right foot, we want to try to just use the strap for support, but if, you're feeling a little tense in the hands or something, and you just want to release the leg down to the ground or onto a block, you definitely can. But the strap gives us an opportunity to kind of explore our range of motion. We can kind of play with that angle in the hip as we raise the toes up towards the head, or take the heel down towards the left toes. So if exploring with some movement here would feel awesome, feel free to do that, or you could settle in to some stillness, getting a nice opening through the hip, the inner thigh. Stay in tune with that right knee. If you have a tendency to lock it out, bring a little softness there. So kind of soften, little micro bend in the knee, but the knee can be bent as much as you'd like if that feels good in your stretching as well. A few more rounds of breath here. And as you feel ready, using the strap, we'll slowly start to draw that right foot and leg back up towards center. And we'll pause just for a moment back at center, kind of a little reset here. Maybe it would feel good to bend and straighten through the leg, or kind of shake it out. And then our next move is we're going to start to take the right foot over towards the left. And we want to keep our right hip bone grounded. So if it helps, bring the right hand to the hip. And then we'll start to bring that right leg across to the left side
And you won't have to go very far before you start to feel sensation in the outside of the right hip. And we want to sit with that. We want to maintain that. So that's why we want that right hip grounded. So we're getting a nice stretch in that IT, the outside of the hip area. Stay in tune. Continue to breathe. And listen to the body. It'll tell you if you've gone too far. Our nervous system snaps right on if we're getting too close to injury. So bring in that mindfulness. Check in with the body. Don't just force it and fling it around and, abuse it. Just let it be where it is today. Meet your body exactly where it is. Don't force anything. Don't shame anything. Respect your body. Sometimes harder to love our bodies, but we should always try to respect them. All right, if this is feeling awesome, stay here. If you want to take this into a little more of a twist, then continue to let that right foot and right leg come over towards the left, and you can let the right hip raise up off the ground. So it's going to take that leg stretch a little more deep and a little more intense, and could bring in some twisting if that feels okay in the spine. And with twists, we always want to have a squared base, which is either going to be the shoulders or the hips, and then the twist comes from the opposite one. So in this one, our shoulders are the base, so we want them as squared as possible. And then the twist is initiated through the hips and works its way up the spine. And the breath is a great way in twists to know if you've gone too deep. If you feel like you have to hold the breath, it feels forced or stagnant, you've definitely gone too deep. We don't need to wring ourselves out. We don't need to go crazy with our twists. Awesome work. Just a couple more rounds of breath here. And as you feel ready, using that strap, we'll start to raise that right leg back up towards the sky. And then keeping the leg where it is, we'll release the strap. Bring the hands alongside the body, plant the hands down, palms facing down, and then close the eyes. This is kind of a fun little thing. This isn't actually a yoga move. But what we're going to do, we're just going to lower the leg down nice and slow. And sometimes it can feel like our leg is going past the ground. It's kind of cool. So we're going to take it nice and slow together. So as you feel ready, just start to lower the leg down for 10, 9, 8, embrace any shaking, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. Release the leg down and then just pause. Just take a moment to observe. Notice the differences in each leg. Maybe one feels a little longer, maybe one just feels more worked. Notice the differences in each side. Notice the similarities in each side. Notice the breath. And just feel. Awesome work. We'll take this over to the other side. When you're ready, we'll start again just by drawing that left knee in towards the chest, hands wrapping around the knee. Check in with that right leg if it feels good to have it extended, or if it feels better to bend the knee and plant the foot on the ground. And then using the hands, just starting to circle the left knee around, working the top of the femur bone in the hip socket. Getting that hip ready to see some action. Cool. As you feel ready, we'll locate our strap. Again, find about the center of it. Put it across the ball of the foot as you start to extend that left leg up. We're flexing the toes back, rooting up through the heel, saying hello to our hamstring. And play a little bit with drawing the toes up towards the head, but be careful. Again, nothing forceful. We're not using the strap to, crank our way into flexibility. That's not how it works, unfortunately. Embracing any shaking in the leg, and if a little bit of movement would feel good here, start to draw a few little circles with the left foot. And again, check in with your grip. Check in with any tension you may be creating in the body. Soften in the neck and the jaw and the shoulders and the tongue. Soften around the eyes. Soften in the hands. And as you start to feel ready, we'll open that left leg up towards the left side body. So again, we work both sides to bring balance, but we don't want to force anything. We don't treat both sides the same. And come back to that mindfulness. Notice your reactions in each pose. Notice how your body reacts. Notice any natural resistance. And get curious about that. Get curious about any emotions that arise. Negative or positive or neutral. The thing is with our thoughts is that some are great, some are awesome, some are inspired. Some are crazy, some are complete bullshit. Some of our thoughts are just like, where did that come from? So that's why we don't want to react immediately to every single thought we have. We have over 10,000 thoughts a day. So mindfulness can help us with that mind chatter, with that monkey brain constantly spewing, constantly giving its opinion. With mindfulness, we can pick and choose which of those random 10,000 thoughts a day that we have, which ones of those we want to feed our energy into, we want to feed our time into, that we want to invest in. And whether we recognize it or not, it is a choice which thoughts we continue to feed, positive or negative. Of course, there's lots of influences, other factors that contribute to that, but ultimately, where our attention goes, energy flows. And we choose where our attention goes. A few more rounds of breath on this side. And whenever you start to feel complete here, raising that leg back up towards center, pausing with that left leg extended up towards the sky. Just a few resetting breaths here through center before we counter that with our outer thigh stretch and twist. So whenever you feel ready, starting to send that left leg across the body over towards the right. But remember, to begin, we want to keep that left hip bone grounded. So if it helps to remind you, bring the left hand to the left hip. And then, you won't have to go far before you start to feel that sensation. I feel it on the back outer side of my hamstring and up into the outer hip and glute area. May feel different in your body, but notice the sensation. I think we can all pretty much tell when a sensation when we're stretching is a good sensation or a bad sensation. We don't want any bad sensations here. At least not in the physical realm of the body. Beautiful work. Continue to breathe. If this is feeling fantastic in the outside of the hip, stay here. If you do want to take it into a twist, you can start to let that left hip raise, left booty raise, and let that leg come over a little bit further over towards the right. Again, we want to have our nice squared base. But don't feel like that means that you have to keep the shoulders glued to the ground. It's definitely not the case because, like I said before, we don't have to twist super far. So if it feels better, if you want the leg all the way over towards the left, but that's too intense of a twist, let the left shoulder raise up off the ground. This is your practice, your exploration. Your time to connect to your body and to your mind. So utilize it. If you want. Who am I to tell you what to do? A few more rounds of breath here. And if it would feel good to have that knee bent, feel free. Know that there's no shame in backing off. Absolutely no shame. The most advanced yoga practice doesn't come from doing handstands, doesn't come from putting your foot over your head and contorting your body into all sorts of crazy shapes. No, the most advanced yoga practice is when you tune into your body and give it what it needs in that moment, no matter what it is. Whether that's rest or resistance, if it's pushing, it's challenging, or if it's surrendering. Awesome work. Wrapping this up as you feel ready. We'll start to raise that left leg back up towards center. Keeping that leg extended, we'll release the strap. Hands come alongside the body, palms facing down, planting on the ground. Close the eyes if that feels okay, as long as it's not going to trigger anything for you. Close the eyes, and then we're going to slowly lower the foot down, nice and slow for a count of 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. Release it down. Pause here just for a moment and observe. Notice any differences. Notice any similarities. Notice from the last time we were here, noticing. As you feel ready, bend the knees, planting the feet on the ground, and then starting to draw the knees in towards the chest, nice and slow, one at a time. Maybe there's a little lift and tuck of the tailbone, so you lengthen through the low back. You could grab onto the tops of the knees or the outsides of the knees. You could even wrap the arms around and give yourself a little hug. If some gentle rocking side to side would feel good here, take that. You could also circle through the knees, pressing the low back into the mat, giving yourself a little massage in the lumbar spine, the low back. We'll take this into a happy baby. So with the knees towards the chest, flex the toes back. Hands will come to the outsides of the knees, and we'll start to open up through the knees. The hands can kind of guide the knees open if that feels good. So this is a reclined frog pose. Feel free to stay here if this feels awesome. If you want to take it into a happy baby, it's really simple. Just start to draw the knees in towards the armpits, feet up towards the ceiling. So the knees are still bent. Hands can come behind the knees, anywhere up the legs, or grabbing onto the tops of the feet, or the bottoms of the feet. So it's kind of like a little happy baby playing in their crib. Feel free to rock side to side or extend one leg out and then the other. My favorite thing to do in this pose lately is to kind of treat my arm or my legs like a bow and arrow, like kick one out to one side, bring the other one in. I don't know, it's a little weird, but it makes me happy, so that's all that matters. Nice work. And since we did a lot of work on the legs, let's just end with a little inversion, just getting the legs have been above the heart the whole time, but without adding the stretch into it. So wherever you are in happy baby or frog pose, release the feet or the knees, and we'll just extend the legs up towards the sky, just in a reclined pike pose. The legs don't have to straighten all the way, don't lock out in the knees. And just kind of let the legs hang out. If it would feel good to bring in a little movement, you could start small just by maybe spreading out through the toes, maybe rolling out through the ankles. Another thing that can feel really good for the legs, shake them out. Just shake them. Releasing some synovial fluid, reversing the flow of blood. And the shaking is also a release for fight or flight. It's a way for the body to kind of release any excess energy, anything that kind of doesn't serve us anymore. So lately I've been all about the shaking. Awesome. And if moving the legs a little more, maybe opening them up into scissors or opening them up to the side in a V. Feel free to explore in your inversion with the legs raised for as long as feels awesome. And then whenever you're ready, we're going to start to make a transition into our Shavasana, or our final relaxation. But I do want to give you some time, if you'd like, to explore any final movements, anything that would feel good here, if you want to revisit anything, or if you have a little ritual that you like to do before wrapping up your practice, or anything that we didn't get to that the body's craving. Take as much time as you'd like to kind of explore any final movements, any final stretches, any little bits of self-love you want to give to yourself. And then whenever you feel ready, no rush at all, you can start to set up your Shavasana, or final relaxation. A traditional corpse pose, which is traditional Shavasana, is on the back, legs extended, toes turned out, palms turned up. You can take that, but if that's not feeling awesome, try something different. For me, sometimes this can be a little intense in the knees or in the low back. So one way to alleviate both, kill two birds with one stone, is with my trusty bolster or a rolled up blanket. You could even take a couple blocks and simply slide it underneath the knees. That relieves some joint pain, that relieves some compression in the low back. So this is a nice alternative. Hands can be doing whatever they'd like. They don't have to be palms up. If you're not feeling very open or receptive, if you want a little more grounding or a little more comfort, you can bring the hands to the belly, one hand to the heart, one hand to the belly. You can give yourself a hug, wrapping the arms around the torso. And if being on the back isn't awesome for you tonight, lie on the side, lie on the belly, come into a seated meditation. It's your choice, however you want to end your practice. The idea behind Shavasana is that it is the most important pose of our yoga practice and oftentimes is the most challenging. And it can be the most challenging because it pretty much reflects directly one of the more challenging aspects of life, of being human, and that is surrender. We move through our yoga practice, we move through our life with determination, with intention, with a sense, oftentimes false sense, of control. And we move with all of this, intention, and then when we get to our Shavasana, or when we get to a pivotal point in our life, the only thing left to do after you've put in all that hard work, all that intention, all that invested energy, is to surrender and to let that good work go to work. Let it integrate into the body, into the mind, into your life. And the final step of that is surrender. So whatever position you're in for your Shavasana, how can you surrender to this? Can you release the body? Release any holding in the body, any resistance, any tension. Surrender it to the earth. Be held in this space. Surrender the breath. Let it find its natural flow. And surrender the mind to the peace of the present. And I know sometimes that peace of mind can be hard to find, so if that's the case, then just continue to simply observe the chaos. Take this moment to surrender fully, to let go of everything, to release every societal pressure, every role you play, every hat you have to wear, and let yourself just be.
those at home, if you have more time to dedicate to your Shavasana, please give yourself the gift of at least 5 more minutes, upwards of 20. As everyone feels ready, just gently start to bring a little movement back into the body. Nice and gently starting to wake ourselves up from our little yoga nap. Gradually bringing a little larger movements into the body, and eventually, if you're not already there, just rolling onto one side of the body. And pause for a moment in a nurturing pose. And wherever you find yourself, just take a moment to offer yourself some gratitude for carving out this time, for stepping on your mat, for your willingness to trust me, to trust yourself, to trust your practice, to trust the power of yoga. Whenever you feel ready, gently pressing yourself back up to a comfortable seat. I'll invite you to bring the hands to heart center or take any other meaningful gesture with the hands. Thank you so much for joining me tonight. For those that allowed me into your homes this evening, I hope you have a fantastic remainder of your night. I see you, I honor you, and I bow to you. Namaste.